When I first moved here in 1974, there was a movement then, and there still is, of people back to the land. They wanted to be self-sufficient, independent, and that was done. And it's still being done, and there are more people doing it.
We're kind of like in a place for the birth of a whole new society, even though by conventional standards we might be considered backwards. I think this is a land of opportunity and really a place where good things can happen and people can learn not only to live in the old ways where a lot of people that live here still know them and still practice them. You can build with materials that are things like earth and stone and wood that's on the property that you live on, and heat it with sunshine and provide all the modern amenities.
This area, if you compare it to a city, it's, city you have to go out there and find a job and pay rent and all that stuff right away. And we're right in the middle, Denver, Albuquerque. And here, in order to survive and to live comfortably, you have to come up with ways. You don't just get it out of a book.
I was born and raised here. I'm sure I'm biased, but it is a special place. Just being here is healing in itself.
I think a lot of people by now, non-Indians, know that our religion and our belief revolves around what all of us do believe in or should. That's nature, because that's what sustains all of us. And I think if we did, a lot more people believed in it or respected it, that this earth and the people would be in a lot better shape. Back then, we grew up together, all the kids, and I remember our times within the village, within the old walls, the traditional part of Taos Pueblo. Mostly, the families moved from their surrounding homesteads where they lived during the summer, planting gardens or whatever, but in the winter, it was customary to move back in and spend the winters in the main part of the village. My family farmed and raised animals sometimes when, for instance, if for some reason a calf was left alone, the mother died or something, we'd have the calf with us during the winter, and we'd have him in front of the fireplace, and we'd bottle feed the cow, and that's how we spent our time. There was no running water inside the villages and no electricity. Everything we did was by kerosene lamp or the light fireplace, and all the homes were kept warm with a fireplace or with let's say a more modern appliances in the house was like a wood cooking stove, which kept the kitchen part of the house warm, and we cooked everything and stuff like that. But when I went to visit my grandmother across the village on the south side, They lived more traditionally. They didn't have any beds in the house, like metal beds or anything. All their bedding was like folded up, and it was used like a mattress, during the night. And during the daytime, they just folded it up and used it as a bench or something. And I always remember when I visited my grandmother, she'd always be doing something. She'd stop whatever she was doing just to feed us. It didn't matter what time of the day you walked in. She'd stop what you were doing and ask you, "Grandson, are you hungry? Have you had anything to eat?" She'd stop what she was doing and put something on the table. And I always remember it didn't matter how small the plate was of food, it always, for some reason, filled you up. Every fall, all the fruit around her house was bare. The trees, she harvested everything. And I remember she'd climb to the rooftop and she'd dry everything on her roof away from the birds or whatever, So she harvested everything, she did. I remember when she passed away not too long ago, she was so healthy that the family, when the doctors from the Pueblo, the clinic, came to pronounce her dead, that she didn't have any records to go by at the clinic because she had never visited the clinic before. She was that healthy. It's a simple life, it just... And then now you think about today and how hectic our lives are. Their lives were so simple. And I think that those were the best of times, I think. So simple, so beautiful. My mother was an artist. And I think I knew at an early age when I discovered some artwork at my house, and primarily some printed work of hers, that she was pretty well known. But as a child, I pretty much accompanied her around town here to visit her other artist friends. So I was the little kid tagging along. And as time went along, just by looking at her work, I somehow got absorbed into it. But I didn't start painting until maybe I left Taos and went to school, primarily at the Navajo Community College in Arizona. They had an art class, but for some reason, I sort of had a stubborn streak. When I went into an art class, I basically did my own thing, I really didn't. I just, put my head down and started doing my own thing. I never listened to the instructors and stuff. And so I think I can safely say I'm self-taught. And to this day, hopefully with each painting, I learned something, a new technique or a new color that I mixed. I think a lot of artists, especially if they're looking at their paintings with somebody like a buyer, or they're asked about their work. What's behind your work? Where is it? Where was it done? If it's a landscape or if it's a person that they've painted. That was the same with me. So after a while, I just started thinking about their questions and stuff, and I started to write things down. And pretty soon, this friend of mine who used to represent me a long time ago kind of just hinted around that maybe I should do a book. And I thought, maybe this is the time to kind of look into having a book done. That's this book here, Taos Pueblo Painted Stories. And I'm pretty proud of it. With each passing season, memories and traditions are being lost as indigenous people struggle to embrace their identity while trying to cope with their ever-changing surroundings. In committing these words and images to print, I hope to help preserve a record of traditional life of our people and to educate those who know little of us, desiring that increased knowledge and understanding will help all of us to live better with one another and with the natural world.
born and raised in Taos, in the foothills on the west side, right up against the mountains, next to the Taos Pueblo reservation. I was raised by my grandparents. The primary language at home was, and the only language, was Spanish. Even though my grandmother was Pohuaque, from the tribe of Pohuaque, and she was half Pohuaque, she didn't speak the language. My grandmother had a 16-year-old son, and he died in an industrial accident, and they named me after him. I was born shortly after. And my mom said that by the time I was 11 months old, my grandma had gotten so close to me that she didn't have the heart to take me back. So grandma raised me. It was very enjoyable, very safe. Like, we didn't lock the doors at night, and my grandma had quite a few siblings that lived around that were actually our neighbors, and they had a bunch of children, so there were a lot of cousins to play with. We ate wherever we were at the time they yelled, "Come for lunch." So I had a lot of grandmas. I had some traumatic experiences. Like, I think it was the first week of school in the playground, for some reason I got in a fight with this kid. And the teacher came up to me and said, "I don't want you to ever do this. Did you hear me?" And she would shake me and I would say no. Because I thought she was telling me that asking me if I was going to do it again so I could say no. So she would shake me harder. It just so happened that my cousin was bilingual. He came and interpreted and said, "Well, he doesn't know." And then he told me what was going on. So our language was not good enough. Our foods weren't either. There weren't any dogs in those days that said, "Yo quiero Taco Bell." You know, like the teacher would get up and had a poster, "This is a wholesome breakfast. Orange juice, eggs, and all the goodies. Pan de la tienda," like we used to call it, store-bought bread, you know, because we had tortillas. Tortillas were from the home, okay? And then she would go to each one of us and say, "Well, what did you have for breakfast?" Most of us had to lie. What happened as a result of that, not just myself, but my generation and other generations, we decided we cannot let our kids go through this. So we made sure that they learned English. But unfortunately, a lot of the language was lost, and it only takes 5 generations if you don't speak the language to lose a culture. I guess just looking back at my experience and seeing what transpired, I decided to do something about it. That's when I started writing the book Abuelito, which is about 4 generations of a Hispanic family and how the language had been lost. About 25 years ago, we resurrected the bean field that my grandfather started. He used to do it by horse, and we started doing it by horse. But also the beautiful thing that started happening is that 4 generations, my grandkids, my kids would come from Denver, whatever, and we'd gather and we'd have like a fiesta. We'd have prayers, there would be stories, there would be, we learned about the traditional way of planting, and that was a good setting to set the story on.
Every other step.
But make sure you get him in the hole, okay?
Bendito, bendito, bendito sea Dios, los ángeles cantan y alaban a Dios.
My grandmother was like a healer, even though she wasn't officially called that. But I saw her pray, I saw her treat with herbs, and she was really spiritual. She's the one that taught me about the Creator and the power of the Creator. Even though I was never raised by my parents, my dad would come around once in a while, and my dad was educated. He was a teacher, and I would see him all dressed up with a tie, and I used to say, well, when I grow up, I'm going to be like my dad, because he doesn't work. He's always dressed up. He doesn't work, because with my grandpa, I worked with the plow and everything, okay? Rough hands. I thought I was getting into social work because of that, because he was a social worker. And one of my first jobs out of high school was actually working at a mental hospital. In those days, we had everybody in the same room. You had the schizophrenic, the aged, you had the alcoholic, you had the retarded. They were all lined up in the hallways like you see in the movies. That's how it was 50 years ago when I started into the mental health field. And they trained me how to be a psychiatric technician. I could do groups according to the Freudian theory and things like that. But anyway, with time, because I also had other responsibilities in addition to one in my education. It took me 8 years because I had 5 kids when I went back to school, so I had to have a full-time job. But my first job out of graduate school from the University of Denver was working with veterans, training substance abuse counselors who had been in recovery themselves for at least a year. I learned that, and the way I interpreted what was going on with them, this was nothing but loss. And I believe substance abuse, we can put it under the name of lossism, because that's what it is. When we experience a loss, or a trauma, it's not that there's anything wrong with us, it's a normal reaction to what may be sometimes abnormal situations. I see my work more like a ministry. I still get excited now in my old age as when I first started, if not more. I feel it. I feel the pain of the people, not just the Hispanic people, but all peoples, because also in my work I've learned to respect different cultures, and many people from different cultures have contributed to my experience in life. I guess the emphasis of respect certainly has come from my profession, but probably more so from my grandma and the community I was raised in. We had to respect not just grandma and grandpa, but any elder. And so we certainly didn't drink in front of them, we didn't smoke, even though we might have been teenagers. That doesn't mean we didn't do it, but we didn't do it in front of them. But any elder could discipline us. Okay. Nowadays we'd get in trouble if we discipline somebody else's child, you know. But in those days, you disrespected the neighbor. You know, and so respect was a big part of the culture. And Benito Juarez, the president of Mexico, or ex-president, said, "El respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz." Respect to others' rights is peace. It's very important in treatment, and it's very important in life. And But I think as a society there's been a lot of loss of respect, not just in children, but we see it in adults. I think in general, and we have to get back to that, to start respecting ourselves, to start respecting our Creator, to start to respect others, and no matter who they are, no matter what color, everybody's worth the same. One of the teachings I got from my dad at an early age: you're no less or you're no better than anyone. And so I've tried to live by that, and it's so important. So the book, or the series of children's books, Lobito, it's about that. It's about bringing back the respect, the old teachings, the old ways that I believe that we've lost. We have to get back to that if we're going to relate at a human level, if we're going to preserve nature, if we're going to survive as humans. We need to get back to respect. In 1999, I developed heart disease, and the cardiologist called me into his office, and after I'd had my operation, and he said, "Ed, you're just too sick. I'll level with you. The only thing that's going to save you is love." So for me, the message was that I might have a few months, a year to live at the most. But I said, where am I going to find this love? And that's when I decided to go to Denver and be with my grandkids, because I know my grandkids love me. And I spent maybe a couple of weeks over there. When I came back full of love and energy. And that's when I sat down to write Abuelito. So with that energy, I sat down 8 to 10 hours a day, writing what I had learned in life so that I could leave it to my grandkids. I have so many of them, 17, that I didn't have, a lot of money to leave them. But I said, I'll leave them what Grandpa has learned in life.
Based on sheep herding and wool. Most of the people in the area were sheep herders and subsistence kind of farmers. They dry farmed everything. They made everything of their own. No imported goods here, and they survived on their skills as sheep herders and loggers and small scale subsistence ranchers and farmers.
Spent a lot of time right here on this ranch with my grandfather. I was just maybe turned 6 years old when he passed away, but I hung out with him. I was raised with him, and this ranch was his pride and joy, so he came out here and worked on it every chance he got. And my job was just to pick up wires and boards and stuff that was just thrown around while they were working on fences and cutting wood or whatever they were doing. 6:37 in the morning, the first thing was to get out there and feed all the animals, make sure they had water, break the ice, do all the farm chores. And then Grandma would call us in probably about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and she had breakfast ready. We'd work till about 11. There's daily mass. At 11 o'clock we'd go to the mass there in Mora. And then right after that to lunch, Grandma had lunch ready by then. And then a siesta after that. It was, you know, we'd sleep for half an hour. And then he'd get us up and he had a carpentry shop in the back. And one of the back rooms it's all set up with all the equipment. So he made all kinds of furniture and cabinets and everything. And actually he was an industrial arts teacher. And they would move him throughout the state, northern New Mexico, Costilla, and around Tres Piedras and those areas a lot. But wherever he went, you know, he was teaching all the basics to live. How to plant was one of the first that you would learn, what he would teach. And then after the planting, it was raising the animals. So he had to grow the feed to feed the sheep, let's say, and cows or whatever. And then he would teach them to raise the sheep. Then he'd teach them to shear the sheep, the whole process that it would take. And then from there they would clean the wool, and he had looms. He was a weaver. He would teach them to weave. And the point of it was doing it all. You know, you don't go to Walmart for a bundle of wool to knit a sweater or whatever. It was all done here on the ranch. Everything was done here. So he was like, I think, the first inspiration for me to do what I'm trying to do right now. In those days when I was raised, it was all Spanish. We just talked Spanish only. When I was 6 years old, I went to first grade. And at that time, it was to where I think the lunch was like 65 cents that you had to pay, or you take your own lunch. So, you know, we took our own lunch, but I was like kind of embarrassed to pull out the tortilla and the scrambled egg or whatever they had made for me, you know, because all the other kids had bread, you know, and it was like you wanted bread from the store instead of the tortilla, and which we all know that fresh tortillas they're rare now, you know, nobody does it. Before it was the tortilla on the pan on the fire, and there's no gas stove or anything like that. You chopped wood and fed the fire and cooked your meal and warmed up or whatever. Now it's kind of all commercial, and if you don't have propane in the tank, you don't cook anything. I knew George since I was a little kid. Since I was 5, 6, 7 years old, you know, he used to hang out with my dad for, you know, they were good friends. And yeah, and then just on and off, you know, because I was in and out of Mora. I went to Albuquerque and different places to work, Taos. But then when we came back, I did my contracting and I tried all that stuff. It's too much pressure, too much run around. You know, a lot of people not really saying the truth and just doing what they're gonna do. And it's kind of tough to be in that business. So when I met Willie, it was around the time that me and George hooked up that we started working together full time, like now, you know. So anyway, after this time that, you know, recession or whatever we call it, where there's no work, well, we had to make up our own work. And I had been neglecting the farm forever because I had so much work. I was working every day hard, and I had 5, 6 man crew most of the time, sometimes 8, you know, so just taking care of all that was nerve-wracking and too much pressure, and I didn't like it. So after talking to Willie and thinking about stuff, you know, and hey, well, you don't need all that crazy stuff, you know, like I say, the brand new 4-door dually and the boat and the RV and all the toys. Sure, it's nice to have them. I'd like to have them, but that's not like really what I need. I need a good tractor and some implements and some money to go out into Colorado to buy some more implements and seed, and you know, that's what we're really here for. I mean, what good is it? I know people that have so much money that they really don't know how to act anymore. They just have to make more and more and more. my thing is making this farm self-sustaining, and with a person like George to help me, you know, he knows a lot about the methods of planting. I mean, to me it was like get a seed, put it in the ground and water it and go, you know, and that's it. But there's processes. You can't just put all your seed there and expect it to produce right unless you do it the right way. You know, you can't mix your corn. If you put white corn next to blue corn, well then you're gonna end up with mixed corn. It'll be blue and white, both of them. Or that's how they come up with all these other colored corns, you know, they breed them. But, you know, with his information and what I've known also, he's pushed the whole time is you don't put your corns close together. You have to be far apart, from the white to the blue to the sweet. So, you know, that at the same time does the crop rotation, which they're strict on that. It's a lot of care. And like this man in harvest time, I think harvest is your favorite. Harvest time, he just wants to fill the bucket. While we're working every day, you know, George comes up with the Spanish sayings, and I don't want to forget him, and I want my kids to learn him. So I've wrote them down here in between places, you know. La cobija del pobre. It's, you know, in the morning, early morning, when it's the coldest, you're cold, and then the sun comes up, and that's the poor man's blanket.
That's your blanket.
And you know what it is whenever they're working out there in the fields or with the animals or logging or cutting wood or whatever, it's they're in those days it was like a lot of, they would sing, and then they would do riddles, and they would pray, and you know, it's all this stuff that was just part of the day, you know. And there was their joke times and their drinking times and whatever, you know. It was just like something that they did it to make the day pass faster or whatever. But these sayings here, a lot of them never even wrote them down or anything. They just had them in their head, you know.
Yeah, we used to sing all kind of songs. I don't remember which ones, but we used to sing about the marrano.
This area, if you compare it to a city, it's, you know, city you have to go out there and find a job and pay rent and all that stuff right away. And we're right in the middle, Denver, Albuquerque. And here, in order to survive and to live comfortably, you have to come up with ways. You don't just get it out of a book. And I think northern New Mexico in general, you know, all around here, people come up with ways to make it. There is no Intel, and there is no huge schools that you could go work at or whatever. What we have here is real minor, and the schools are full of teachers and everything else, custodians and cooks and everything else that goes with it. So we have to invent ways to survive. A lot of people get mixed up in the money, and that, I was there, I've been there, and the money is the thing that motivates people. I think a money motivated person isn't thinking completely clear. They're just motivated by money, and they have to go make the money, which in my case, being that I've been there, fighting for that almighty dollar, if you really look at it, you don't really need it. What you need is this blue corn to eat, you know. Nobody could eat money. They could eat it, I guess, but it's not gonna sustain them. So this to me is worth more than money. And I could, you know, a bag like this is worth $11 or $12, but I don't want the $12. I want the corn. And not only is this food for you, it's food for your animals, it's it's food for all your neighbors. Hopefully that I could just sustain my family and myself and teach them how to do this. Because, you know, I'm not here for much longer either myself. Nobody is. We're all headed to that place. But if I could leave this legacy here for my kids and know that they know how to make pancakes and bread and chips and atole and chaquewe and everything else, and leaving everything set up for them, now that's like a dream come true to me. That's like hitting the lottery. That's like being a millionaire, you know.
I remember my dad and my grandpas. The first thing they teach us was respect the elders and be honest. Don't steal, don't, just be honest. Work an honest day for an honest pay. And that's the only way you will survive. Remember my dad used to tell me, you got to be a man. Now you are a punk, he used to tell me. He used to put me in days that were colder than today. So you want to go to school? No. So he sent me back to the cold again. I suffer, I used to cry like a baby, but I survived it. And I've become a man.
I was tired of being what they call a trampe. A trampe is a person that don't have his own house, you know, like sleeping here, sleeping there, you know. Plus, I was, you know, fighting all the time. I got stabbed. I was, you know, really, really sick of liquor. So I walked, it was a hot summer. I walked all this, I don't know, I might say it probably was like probably about 3 miles. And it was mostly, it was uphill. You know? I sat there and I was over there on my knees, and all of a sudden, Willie Groffman, you know, I wasn't hitchhiker or nothing. Willie stopped and he goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Nothing." He gave me the ride to my grandma's, you know, right there by her entrance. And then about a week later, I went down his house and he started talking about if I needed work. And I said, yeah. He had a lot of confidence in me, and that really helped me out, knowing, you know, to get me back. And he had me cutting down trees, peeling them. You know, this was, you know, it was already starting to get winter. And we, you know, we cut all the logs and everything. So we kept on working, you know, and then come spring, me and Willie started building. I thank God that happened to me, you know. I learned a lot from Willie. I learned, you know, how to, you know, peel logs. Well, I knew how to do that, you know, way back, but I used to do this stuff. I was born and raised here. There was no greed. Everybody helped each other, you know, and there were, you know, nowadays there's a lot of envy, hate. The old days, they used to help each other with the fences and whatever had to be done. What I remember about my grandpa, I remember he used to get up, you know, make us breakfast, and then we had our chores. You know, like they say, they were mean, but it wasn't mean. They were trying to show you, you know, as a young kid, you know. But my grandpa showed me a lot of things. He showed me how to shear sheep. He showed me how to, you know, well, I guess it comes in the genes, waking up early in the morning, going doing the chores and this and that. And my grandpa used to get these corrals, you know, like for, you know, like 50 up to 100 sheep. And we'd go over there, you know, it'd take us 3 or 4 days to go over there, sharing the old school, you know, with the scissors. But then I went to Colorado, and then, you know, I did all whatever, you know, all these bad things. I got in trouble with drugs. It was greed that got me in trouble. The more I had, the more I wanted. Went to prison in Colorado. I hate to talk about my past now, but it's kind of funny though, but it helps, you know, it helps me talk about it. And I like life now. Look at all the poison. I was poisoning people. I didn't really have, how do you say that, consideration for other people. It was always me. I was always stuck on myself, I guess. I went to prison, but I learned, I hope. Sometimes I knock myself in the head and think about all the bad things I was, but I try to make them good. You know, I'm really, really trying. I thank the Creator that I went to them things, because, you know, now I think about it, and I think I know how to stay away from evil. But there's a good way, you know, to get your life back together. We call it one step at a time, but I don't take steps. I go day by day. When I was in prison, you know, I was always like in Colorado, I was a jewelry man. And I used to see a lot of people draw that. And, you know, I was making crosses, this and that, you know, necklaces, bracelets, whatever. I used to see good drawings. So I got into, you know, little sketching. But it was nothing but girls and roses, you know, or hearts. But I used to always do them black and white. I don't draw girls no more. But I get into the crosses, the hearts, and roses. Because the roses, I don't know, roses make me feel like, I don't know, that. It's kind of weird. I can't explain it. The colors that makes, you know, anybody can draw, but the colors will put out anything, will cover anything, and they're beautiful. How my life changed. Oh, in a lot of ways. I don't fight. It's kind of weird, but it's good. You know, my life here, I would never have thought that I would be milking a cow. Oh, nature does a lot helping me. I see things more clearly, you know, like I could think more, not worry about, you know, because in the city, you don't know what's going to happen to you. You know, you can walk down the street, there's a drive-by, you know. You don't have to be involved, but they'll get you involved. Well, in the city, there's always a lot of ways you can take care of your anger. Over here in the country, how you take care of your anger nowadays is what you do is you go out there in the mountain and you just take a big old breath and tell them, yeah, I'm alive. But life is good though, I like it. It's really good because I realize, you know, my grandma, you know, she's in her older days, and it's good, you know, that I think it was a blessing for me to be here. I guess the Creator had intentions for me to snap out of it. I watch myself a lot better. I love my life. What I really love is the nature over here and, you know, in the country. And, you know, helping people instead of, you know, destroying them. For everybody have a good life and have peace in their heart and no hate. If you have hate, you're killing yourself, not nobody else. That's about it.
Northern New Mexico and the villages here are so isolated for so long a time. People come here with their own set of ideas, you know, from wherever, their background is, New York, Chicago, Dallas, LA, doesn't matter. They look at the people as primitive. First of all, as an old Hispanic culture has been kind of isolated. So they don't understand them. And they don't really see through because of their maybe simpler lives. They don't look at the real talents that are here. They don't see that their whole land-based, agricultural-based traditional societies, and so they're just not looked at as a modern people with advanced ideas. No. If you get underneath the stereotypes, then you see the true talents that are here. And I've been trying to tap into those, especially recently, because as I age, I used to do everything solo, but now I need the assistance of the next generation, which is obvious. That's what needs to happen if we're going to get anything done in a positive manner, instead of doing the same old, which people are kind of disenfranchised with or disenchanted with, because they seem to be failing, all those systems. So I grew up in Chicago and spent on the south side of Chicago my first 16 years of growing up. So my education was really urban, on the streets, kind of south side education. That was not too much schooling. Started working as a very young guy. My dad instilled that in me, and I went to work with him. And then I started building, and at 18, I started working in construction, and then was lucky enough to be trained by an excellent Norwegian family of carpenters that were boat builders also, and great craftsmen, and my boss, he was also an architect. So he took me under his wing and gave me a chance to learn all the trades. So what are you going to do with those skills? Well, when the oil embargo came in 1973, work fell out back east, and so I said, I'm packing my tools and leaving, so there's no work here. What am I staying here for? I had already camped out through New Mexico, and I said, well, I'm getting back to New Mexico. It was so beautiful here and empty, and the sun. I wanted to build with the sun. Whatever your local materials are, it's just like whatever your local talent is. Everybody has building materials on their land, depending on where you live. I happen to live in big pine and stone and adobe and all kinds of methods to build with. So you don't have to go through the industry, because if you pick a proper place, you build to the place, from the place, instead of let's go to lumberyard, let's go to this, wherever imported things are. So the base is that everybody, wherever they live, has something indigenous to build with. And that be the materials and the labor force, the people that live here, the cultural, the way things were built way back, before there was an industry, before there was modern conveniences, before there was modern materials. People built, and they built beautifully. So that's what attracted me to this area. Not only what was in the land itself, is the people that lived here, the culture that was here. Working here, I've been able to work with an unbelievable amount of different native materials, native characters that have their own talents incorporated into my kind of style of building, which is solar again. And our buildings are not only functional, but they're art. So that's what we're trying to do, is show the next generation of buildings in an artful way. We're inside this 1,600 square foot greenhouse, and I built this project because of the pressure we have in our fuel systems. The modern dilemma is hey, the company will take care of everything. Oh, we'll transport the food all over the country. Don't worry, there's plenty of fuel. Well, they're all lying to us. So I wanted to make fuel and distill alcohol, which is actually a perfect fuel because it's coming from solar energy again, because you're distilling plants. So the idea was to have a still inside the greenhouse that would do many functions besides being a backup heat source when we do need it, when we do have a week of cloudy weather and 0 temperatures. You do need a backup for a solar greenhouse. So it does that. The still also does fuel, which is maybe a minor part of it, but it's a major part of our living when we drive in vehicles anyhow. The still also creates lots of hot water that could be used within the greenhouse and distilling again, or many other applications. What I'm getting at is this is a total system involved in the still and the greenhouse, built in a permaculture kind of idea. If you're familiar with permaculture, it's really kind of a philosophy. It's the antithesis of monoculture, which we basically live in now, which is the other corporate global system of food production, fuel production. All these productions that we're taken over by corporate structures. So, and now everybody's like, under their thumb. So this is really a project to show that we don't have to be that way. And so it's an important step to make a prototype, show it to people, and see if it can be duplicated, made bigger, smaller, any scale we want to do for the small family, for people that want to live off the grid, that want to supply their own food, supply their own everything. These tables are for propagating starting plants. There'll be 4 beds. There'll be about 4,000 flowers started here for spring that we sell in the spring, and hanging pots and flower arrangements and other things that pay for the greenhouse. We have pretty cold winters here, and when the sun shines, though, we have an amazing amount of solar gain. So, and there's our tomato trees. They're about 8-10 foot tall, and been giving us about 10 pounds a day, every day, and through the winter. So we're eating tomatoes and giving them away and bartering and trading and selling all winter. So everything is used. It's a closed system really, that everything that we do in here is there's never a waste. It either goes into a process of making a little money, a barter, and everything that most people consider waste is used again. We could grow anything we want in the greenhouse environment because it's contained. It's winter outside right now. We're in a blizzard that just is starting to clear up. But in here it's probably about 48 degrees now and warming. But basically we could grow any type of food or make a small business with mushrooms. It's endless what you can grow and incorporate into it, but have a small income or a large income if you want in bigger scale, and be able to stay in a rural setting and make a good living. And that's another part of this process is basically giving people hope that they could stay in a rural structure where there are no jobs. You have to create a job. So here's another creation that you can employ people or you can employ yourself. Any scale you want again, to give people hope that they can stay in their home places instead of migrating to the cities because of work. So it fits a lot of the different objectives of trying to remain on the land, remain in your traditional cultures without gravitating to the industrial complex, which is we've seen for the last 50 years. That's the migratory pattern. Everybody moving back to the megalopolis. What are these cities? 20 million, 30 million, I don't know. But they're ridiculous. People are they can't live that way. It just creates more poverty, more insanity, and more pollution. So here's an alternative. And that's what I've been doing in this project. I've been actually doing this for 40 years, building solar. Juggling is another one of my skills that I've incorporated into everything I do anyhow. In fact, I taught myself to juggle when I started construction. It was raining for weeks and I got bored. Just sitting in my one-room place, not being able to work, and so I said, I could learn how to juggle, I guess, because I had seen jugglers as a kid, and everybody saw them on TV, right? And I went, I know I could learn to do that. I had the time, so I picked up 2 objects, and I could do that. Wow, I could do 2. Where does that third one, where does it go? And finally, I tossed it in, and it's just like magic. Oh, there was juggling. I could juggle, and I became a professional juggler for a while, and incorporated that whole idea of juggling into everything I do. It says if you juggle, you could deal with anything. You could any circumstances, anything, because you have to manipulate so many objects and keep track of them. And, you lose them, you drop them. How do you deal with that? Well, you got to. So you must pick it up and juggle again. So if you drop something, you continue. So it's like, oh yeah, you have to learn how to deal with dropping, losing something. Okay, so you incorporate out those ideas again. Juggling is like manipulating a lot of objects, being able to keep track of all of them, and seem like you're not keeping track of anything. It crosses into everything we do. And if you become good at anything, which takes practice, that always helps you whatever else you're doing. Well, I get hung up in the negativity of the global world. I don't go there. Even though it's out there, it doesn't affect me. It just motivates me to do my jobs, which are pretty much built to the sun.
I'm Mark Myers, and I work installing and designing solar electric systems, both ones that are grid-tied, but also the off-grid systems, which I really enjoy doing most. They really empower people because you become your own utility. You have solar panels and a battery bank so that you can provide power just like in any other home, but live anywhere and do it. It's funny, we do have the technologies available to be able to turn this world back into a Garden of Eden. And we could do it in 10 years' time if we had the political will. My degree is in renewable energy. Actually, I went to school just because I wanted to live off the grid and I wanted to learn how to design an electric system for my own home. And then I was just fortunate enough to find work in that industry with a company that was working in Taos, where I'd bought my land. I grew up back east, and I read this book called Living the Good Life by Helen and Scott Nearing. Back in the 30s, at the same time the rest of the country was being thrown into the same kind of economic turmoil that we're being thrown into now by the robber barons back then. They heated all with wood. They built their own buildings by themselves with stone and metal roofs, and they grew all their food organically and fertilized with compost. And they became the grandparents to the Back to the Land movement that we saw kind of spring up in the 60s. A lot of people started moving back to the land and doing similar things. Scott Nearing lived to be 100 years old. It's just like amazing that they were at the same place that people like Willie and different people that I've come to meet around the country that are involved in technologies that are really sustainable and really do allow people to empower themselves and allow people to really live a good life. So the project I'm working on now is, I call them powerhouses because that's just what they are. They're just a little building with solar panels mounted to the roof of it and a battery bank built underneath the floor in the foundation. And then some power equipment, inverters to be able to convert that DC power that the solar panels produce and get stored in the batteries. that converts it to AC power that can be used in any typical modern appliance. And so what this is just a little building that can be taken and placed anywhere, and then you can run an electric line from that to power a house or anything really. And all of this is portable, and it's going to become really affordable with the cost of solar panels coming down. So it really is something that solves a lot of the problems of doing an installation for someone that lives 50 miles from town or 100 miles from town, because not only is the thing completely self-contained and is not going to be intrusive to the house or whatever building you're trying to power, but the entire powerhouse can be built and then delivered and installed in a day. So if we learn to live within balance of what falls from the sky in rain, and if we can power things that we want to power now with electricity using solar panel that has no toxic effects on the environment, at least once they're built, and we can show the rest of the world how to live a good life.
My grandpa, he was like, I think the first inspiration for me to do what I'm trying to do right now. I think that, especially in our culture here, we should be thinking about growing and having that seed. When you have a surplus of seed, then you're like a millionaire. If I could leave this legacy here for my kids, now that's like a dream come true to me. That's like hitting the lottery.
I'm sure I'm biased, but it is a special place. Just being here is healing in itself. Maybe it's like in the Old Testament, they used to have the cities of refuge where people could go and refresh every year.
The possibilities are tremendous, really, and most people are looking at the world with a negative attitude. Okay, so we're in the worst of times. Well, I think we're in the best of times. The potential's there. It's just getting people excited or getting them educated, so to speak. That there are alternatives that can work, that can make a sensible, kind of honorable life.
Our religion and our belief revolves around nature. That's what sustains all of us.
Bye.